Hi, guys. Hi, friends. Good morning, or good morning for me here on the West Coast. I'm tuning in from Portland. Hi, guys. Welcome in. So glad you are here. This is Mastering Client Management. This is your HoneyBook guide to CRM success. So that is what you are here for. I love seeing all of you guys in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So this is going to be an hour-long interactive session covering HoneyBook tools from the lens of a CRM. So we are really happy you guys are joining us. We've got people from all over. Wonderful. So I need to take a moment to introduce myself as well. I was hanging out over there in the chat with you guys, but want to introduce myself more officially. So my name is Mac. I am part of the HoneyBook education team here. I've been with the company for 7 years, which is crazy. So needless to say, I know the product like the back of my hand, and I'm hoping when y'all leave here today, you're feeling a little more confident as well. So let's dive in. Our goal today, I already kind of alluded to this, but we're going to be going through HoneyBook from a high level and really the focus on the CRM. So I want you guys all to leave here with a high level understanding of the CRM tools that HoneyBook offers and how to get started using them. There are a lot of CRM functionalities and a lot of kind of advanced options within the HoneyBook system. So in order to cover them all, just to make sure that you're aware of them, we're going to cover it from a pretty high level, but I'm also going to try to give as many like tactical, actionable things as I can so that you know how to get started using them and how to kind of tackle that journey. Okay, so the way we're going to get there is by covering those HoneyBook CRM basics, like we were just talking about, the difference between project and client, project workspace clients, contacts, all of that we are actually going to cover in that section. So I love that you threw that in the chat. We're going to go through streamlining communication and templatizing. This is a huge aspect of CRM, right? This is how we get our time back, which kind of leads us to the next piece of getting organized and saving time. This is like the beating heart of a CRM, right? And then finally, we'll get into standardizing your process and automating. So we're going to get into that automation section towards the end of today's class. And the reason for that is just because there's kind of a lot of pre-work and really foundational understanding that we need to get under our belt before we ever tackle automations. So we'll kind of go through that flow while we're here together, okay? So to kick this all off, I want to level set and go through some of these kind of CRM building blocks and basics with you guys. And I know we had some newer folks in the chat, and we've got some kind of more advanced folks or people who have been using it a little bit longer. So before we do anything, I just want to make sure across the board, we are all on the same page here. So I'm going to start out with projects. So in terms of grasping HoneyBook, this is really stop number one, okay? So projects as defined by the HoneyBook system are just your jobs. Okay, that's the simplest way to think about it. So as soon as an inquiry gets submitted, as soon as they fill out your intake form, we call them lead forms in HoneyBook, and I'll get into those later. As soon as they fill in that form, they're going to be added to HoneyBook as a project. And the project is serving as your centralized hub for all of your communication, all of your files, all of your meetings, your project details, your payments, okay? And that's going to keep everything organized for both you from a business perspective, right? But it's also going to organize your clients as they embark on the journey of working with you, okay? So it's going to keep everyone really clean so you can really start to see the value that they get in working with you because you've chosen to use a tool like HoneyBook that allows everyone to have visibility into all of the different workings and inner workings that go into your client flows and operating your business, okay? So this leads us to the next point of clients, right? So this one is really straightforward. Your clients are the folks who are hiring you. So these are going to be your participants or your collaborators within your project. So their projects are like that centralized hub. And then the people who are working with you within that one project are the people who are hiring you to complete that work, right? So it's pretty straightforward on that front. So I want to pause for another moment just to kind of get to know who actually showed up to today's session in terms of how you approach your business. So are you someone who, so hop in the chat for me, are you someone who more so does like one and done client work? So an example of this would maybe be someone in the events industry, like if you're working with a bride, you probably, hopefully she's only getting married one time. And that would be like a one and done client. So are you one and done when you're working with your clients? Or are you someone who's working with folks on a longer term basis? Maybe they're like a recurring client or a subscription model, or you like to renew your work with them after a period of time. So hop in the chat. Are you one and done, or are you trying to retain clients over a longer term basis? Okay, we've got an event planner, so that's a one and done. We've got a longer term events, recurring, both for Etsy, longer term coaching, both. Okay, wonderful. Great. This is super helpful. One and done, both. Okay, great. Yes. Both is very common too, right? Okay, florist, so projects are often one and done. DJ, one and done. Yes. Okay, wonderful, you guys. Thank you. Retainer clients, mostly one and done. Cool. Okay, this is so helpful, you guys. So I'm going to be tackling both as we go through today's work, obviously. So we've just defined what project and client in HoneyBook are, and we have kind of two different spaces in HoneyBook that you can manage or view your work, depending on essentially like the vantage point that you want in a given moment. So first and foremost, there's the project workspace. So this is synonymous with the project that we just talked about. It's your centralized hub for communicating with the client. So I want to show you what that looks like now. Okay, so when you're inside of a project in HoneyBook, this is what it looks like. We've got our client up here at the top that we're working with. So if you're an event person, this is whoever is hiring you for that event. And your activity feed and all these tabs here, but your activity feed really is like the beating heart of this. And it's showing you all the files you've sent, any activity in those files. So signatures that have come through, payments that have come through, and all of your email communication. So for this particular job, all of my communication around this job is organized here in this project. Now, we also have something called a client workspace in HoneyBook. And a client workspace is really meant to help show you your collection of work with a client over time. So if you're a one and done, you're really just going to be living in project land. But if you ever got to a place where you wanted to view clients who have worked with you multiple times, or if you're someone who does view your work that way, one of the ways you can get to the client workspace is by clicking the client's name straight from the project and then clicking to the client workspace here. Another way you can get there is through the contacts tab and then clients. And then you can search here to find who you're looking for. And this client workspace, as I mentioned, is going to be that collection of work with them. So if they're a longer term client and you want to view over time, you know, their value or their worth to you, you can view that here, as well as all of your different email communication back and forth, all the different payments, projects, notes, all of that good stuff is going to be here as well. Okay, so it's really great for keeping track of those clients over a longer period of time, and it's tracking your entire working history with them. Okay, so the key takeaway when we're comparing the client workspace and the project workspace should be everyone here today is going to be using projects and the project workspace to track and organize their work or their jobs, right? And then some of you are going to want to take it kind of at level higher and view that client workspace just to get visibility into your collection of work, your communication over all time for an individual client, okay? And then the final one here is the client portal. So this is the client-facing side of HoneyBook or of the project that you're working with them on. And this is going to serve as their access point to their projects with you. So anytime you're working with a client, they're getting access to HoneyBook through their normal email inbox. When you send emails through HoneyBook or files through HoneyBook, that's all going to their normal email inbox. But the client portal is this kind of extra layer to give them consistent access through a URL or a web page. Okay, so I'll show you kind of what this looks like So inside of your company settings, so the way you get here is through the profile picture in the top right and company settings. And then you come to domain and client portal. You guys can actually customize this domain, which is really wonderful. That's a more advanced setting, obviously. And then the client portal is down here. So this URL is a thing that you can say to your clients, hey, bookmark this, because along our journey, especially if you have longer term clients, right, you want them to consistently have access to that project workspace so that they can stay really organized, right? So this is where you can start to add that extra value to them to say, hey, this is where we're going to be organizing our work. Save this URL, bookmark this URL, so you can always get back to it to view messages and files and whatever else you want them to be able to view there, okay? Because that's their kind of access point in addition to their normal email inbox. So you might want to have them save that URL or customize this URL so they can always get back to it. And again, it's that extra layer of value, right? Okay, and that obviously brings us to our next kind of conversation point here around communication. So we want to take a closer look at how HoneyBook is going to help you streamline your communication with your clients. And what this really boils down to is templatizing. So in HoneyBook, you have two options for templates. You've got emails and you've got smart files, okay? And you can create emails and files on both the template level and the project level. Okay, so we just went through projects and we know what that looks like, right? The project level is where we're working with our clients. So this can tend to trip some folks up because they're not sure where to start. So I want to clear the air right now. Templates are always where you should start. I know I've got a lot of new folks here today. So if you are looking for guidance on how to get set up with HoneyBook and templates are tripping you up, templates are absolutely where you should start. Okay, this is the initial legwork that is required to kind of set up your account. This is where you're going to decide kind of the bones of the different files, messages, documents that you're needing to send to your clients. So you're going to decide what they need to say and what they need to look like and how they need to feel. Okay, and then once you've built those templates out, you can use them as the foundation to communicate with your clients later on, right? So that template is like your jumping off point for communicating with individual clients later on. So it's really like all that initial legwork is done so that you can just tweak a couple things here or there when you go to message your clients. Okay, so I want to hop into the product and actually show you guys where these templates live because you have some really fabulous options for starting out with templates and kicking these off in your account. So if you are a new user with us, actually everyone who, when they first signed up for HoneyBook, there's a complimentary file migration service. So if you have not taken advantage of that yet, I highly, highly recommend it. It is going to save you a ton of time. Basically, our team will take all of your contracts, your invoices, your pricing guides, your questionnaires, any files that you use for your business today. We will take those from you and build them into your account. It takes us about 3 to 5 business days, and it'll really save you a lot of that initial legwork. So we've got the complimentary file migration. So if you haven't done that, take advantage of that. Kitsy just posted the link. Amazing. Thank you, Kitsy. And then the other option, if you don't have those to send, or honestly, I would just recommend everyone check this out. It's our template gallery. So this is like HoneyBook Pinterest. This is where you can go for visual inspiration, but also to kind of like lift the veil behind the scenes of what settings and parameters go into building a file visually, functionally, to really use it almost like a learning opportunity to be able to see the composition that went into creating a file like this. So inside of here, you can filter for, let's say I'm a bookkeeper and I want to look up pricing and service guides for myself, okay? So in here, I can click in and I can scroll through this file and see how this individual has set it up. This is offering, really just showcasing my services. So I can click through to see all the pages. And if this looks like something that I want to use for my business, If this is something I want to kind of like replicate and make my own, I can do that. Okay, so I can jump right into editing it straight from here, or I can do a quick save, which is going to throw it into my personalized gallery of files. Okay, so again, whether you're doing the file migration service or if you're just kind of looking to start from scratch, this is a really, really great place to go for inspiration, both from a composition perspective and a settings perspective to learn. Because once you save this, obviously you can look at all the settings and how they made the file this way so that you can kind of get familiar with those files. Or you can just totally take it and put your branding and everything in there and get it looking really, really nice for your business. Okay. And then the next piece here, once you kind of get your files initially set up, it can be kind of challenging because there's so many files that can be in here because the nature of smart files is they can do a lot of things. So one quick way to navigate this section is to use these filters up at the top. So if you want to find a file that has both invoice and contract, for example, you could add those filters in and it'll kind of filter down the view that you have so you can quickly find the files that you're looking for. Okay. And then of course there's folders over here as well. So I like to use folders, or I like to recommend that you guys use folders, not to separate out by the type of file. So not invoice, contract, because you already have those filters available, but rather using those folders for the different service offerings that you have or different stages in your process, like I have over here with onboarding and booking and post booking. So that can also help you stay organized with these. Okay, now let's take a look inside of a smart file to actually show you what these can do, because they are very, very robust and probably not looking super similar to the files that you are used to using. So anytime you are inside of a HoneyBook file, you have these elements that can be put together to create a file. So these are called your blocks. Okay, so there's the option to add text or questions, imagery, video. You can have file upload for your clients to send files to you. So if you are a florist, I know I've got a florist here from LA. If you're a florist and you want them to send inspo, maybe you have them upload a couple of images from Pinterest or something like that. You could also use a question to have them send you their Pinterest board or something like that, right? There's lots of different ways we can use these files depending on our use case. Dividers are just a way you space out information within the file. The company info block is going to pull in directly from your company settings to showcase your logo and your socials. And then the layouts is basically just different compositions, kind of templates within templates to help you organize all of those things so you don't have to start from scratch. Okay, and then the other options that we'll see here are the action blocks. So we've got services down here, which is really cool. This is going to allow your clients to select the services they are interested in receiving from you. So you can list out your packages in one service block and your add-ons in a different service block so they can select, the master kind of package they're interested in with you, and then go on to select multiple add-ons. So you can have multiple service blocks in one file. And then you can even choose to set up the settings so that those services pull into an invoice later on in the same file to create a really hands-off booking flow, okay? So you'll notice here the ability to add an invoice and payment is here as well. Of course, we have the ability to contract. So that's the form that they can fill out with any of the spaces that you've left for them, as well as the e-signature down at the bottom. And then we also have this scheduler component where you can showcase your availability to your clients and allow them to choose a time that works for them. So I can show you quickly here. This scheduler will pull in your availability. So if you want to set up a meeting with them, I'll show you how this file is built out. So this is welcoming the client, and then it's like a pretty in-depth discovery questionnaire that we're asking them to fill out to really get to know them. asking them to actually schedule that discovery call, move forward with paying this 6-month coaching package. I know I've got a couple of coaches here today, so this hopefully is getting some gears turning. We've got the contractual element, then payment, and then thanking them and letting them know what's to come, what's coming next. So we're using this as an opportunity to really set expectations with those clients as well. Okay, so this is a very robust example. If this is overwhelming the heck out of you, do not worry. These files can also be very simple. So just because they can do all the things doesn't mean we have to build them that way, right? But it does kind of beg the question, how do I want to use these files? And we'll go into that in a couple of seconds. But I want to show you these files can be simple too. Here's a simple 1-page invoice. I've got, all my settings already set up in terms of how I like my clients to pay me. I can set up a one-time payment or a recurring. I'll wait to add the services until I am actually inside of a project with my client, because this is a template. I'm walking right up to that line of adding client details, and I'm stopping there because my templates never have client details in them. They're that jumping off point, that foundation, that baseline for communicating with my clients. Once I get into the project, that's when I add the services that they're paying for and other things, okay? Payment schedule down here and the ability to pay. Very straightforward. The files can be as robust as you want them to be or as simple as you want them to be, which again, as I mentioned, kind of begs that question, what, like the real power of these files essentially is, how do you want to run this for your business? Like how you really kind of need to take like a look at your process and start to identify, where have you just been doing things because that was the only way that was possible, versus where you can now do things how you actually want them to be done because it makes more sense for your process. So for example, we might want to start small and just combine the invoice and the contract piece, because as soon as a client pays you, you usually send out that contract. But now with the ability in Smart Files, you can have that invoice page right before that contract page. So that kind of wait time and that kind of gap or bottleneck maybe in your business, we're going to cut down on that with the ability in Smart Files now, to really create that cohesive booking experience for you and your clients. Okay. So that's like baby steps. There's also the whole robust file that we just looked at too. Okay. So let's kind of start to think through what it looks like to set these up for your own business even further. As we mentioned before, Smart Files can do a lot of different things and they can look a lot of different ways. And this is kind of where we get into that power with CRM, right? How are you optimizing your time? How are you using the tools that you have to eliminate kind of that busy work and focus on doing your best work, right? That's what this is all about. So there's really 3 questions that you need to ask yourself as you assess your own process and start to identify what you need a certain file to do. So functionally, right? What do you need it to do for you? Do you need it? This is really kind of where there's action blocks come in. Do you need it to invoice? Do you need it to contract? Do you need them to select those services and then go right on to pay? Or do you want to actually kind of split things up where they're selecting those services, then maybe booking a phone call with you so you can discuss the plan, maybe even upsell them, and then send the invoice and contract file, right? So where do you want to eliminate gaps and eliminate space in your business by combining those steps in files? And where do you maybe want to build out some space to allow you to be more hands-on? And that's kind of where I think the scheduling tool can really, really be beneficial, okay? So you need to ask yourself what you need a file to do. Those are all really good questions to ask yourself. What do you need it to look like? I'm not a designer, so I usually turn to the template gallery for this because it's so helpful just to visually see what those files look like. And you can use the whole file or you can pick and pull different pages into your own. It is so, so wonderful to use that as a jumping off point. So do you want it to be more simple or do you want it to be more robust and visually compelling? I'm going to use my florist again because I've got that on the brain. That is such a visual industry, right? So how do you use these files to really showcase what can be done and help people start to visualize that for their big day? And then what do you need a certain file to say? What information are you trying to convey to them? And what information do you need to collect from them, right? So really using these files to set expectations and make sure that you and your clients are aligned and make sure they know what they're getting when they're doing business with you, okay? And visibility into your process here is really a key piece to understanding how to answer these questions and start to build out those files in a HoneyBook. So we almost, before we go into asking those questions, or if you feel like, I don't know how to answer those questions, it's probably because you need more visibility into your process, which HoneyBook is actually going to help you with. So it might take a little bit of time because you probably didn't have so much visibility into your process before you were using a tool like HoneyBook, okay? So we call this journey your client flow here at HoneyBook. So we want you guys to get used to that term as well. I'm curious, hop in the chat for me, you guys. How many of you feel like you know your process really well, or maybe you've even mapped out your process before? I think I had some business coaches here, so I know this is probably a practice you do with your clients all the time. So hop in the chat. Let me know, have you mapped out your process before? We're total process nerds here at HoneyBook. I'm like, I could talk about this stuff all day. Bianca has, Kala has. Okay, wonderful. So getting that visibility, Gazelle says no. Leanne says this is helping her get clear. Wonderful. Okay, great. Yeah, so that's the hope, right? I'm going to show you guys in just a moment here, kind of, actually, I might as well just show you now. These are kind of the typical steps. Courtney says she's mapped it out in her head. Kendrick says yes. Venice is still working it out and getting there. Absolutely. It's a labor of love. It takes a little bit of time. I think especially if you're a newer business, you're kind of gauging like, okay, where do I need to do certain things with my clients? So feel free to screenshot this here if you're someone who has not mapped out your process, or even if you're someone who has done that. This is what we typically see our members doing with their clients in HoneyBook in terms of their process. So we've got capturing business and really qualifying those folks. We've got selling services, the official booking, the project management. Tiffany wants to do it on paper. I'm so with you. I feel like I'm seeing like a whiteboard and like the Post-it notes, right? And you're like, ooh, actually this goes in this other stage, right? So use this as kind of a guide, right? Like these columns are associated with the different stages in your process. That can be so helpful. And I think once you get that visibility, it can really, again, start to help you answer those questions of where do you want to cut down on some of those things that are maybe more spread out in your process than they need to be. For example, again, that really basic one of the invoice and the contract. Do those really need to be separate files? Or now that you have HoneyBook, does it make sense to have that be a 2 or 3 page document instead so your clients can really seamlessly book with you when it's time? So getting that visibility is so, so helpful. And it'll really start to highlight. So this is another question to ask yourself. It'll really start to highlight where you can afford to combine those steps and automate things and ultimately save time versus where you want to be hands-on with your clients. Where do you want to have a face-to-face meeting? Where do you want to type out an email and not necessarily rely on a template? Where do you need to be really involved? And the key point here being those places where you want to be really involved, those should be the places that are actually moving the needle for your business, aka impacting your bottom line, aka bringing in the money. Okay. So those are the questions you want to be asking yourself when you're thinking about your process. Okay. And then as I alluded to, the other way to gain visibility into your process is simply by using HoneyBook. And this is all about getting organized. So this system by nature, y'all, is consolidating your process, right? So it's getting everything organized under one single roof so that you get visibility into it and you can make improvements to optimize those areas where clients are kind of getting stuck or bunched up or even lost, and ultimately save that time. Hop in the chat and let me know if this is kind of resonating with you guys. I know this is helping some folks kind of assess their business. Saving you time is really HoneyBook's love language. This is what it's all about. That is why we have such a big focus on creating templates for various parts of your business, like we just talked about, and those different communication points. But it's also why we're trying to centralize your work and keep you and your clients organized along that journey of working together. So I want to dive into that organizational piece a little bit more here. And naturally, we need to start out with lead forms, because this is how you will automatically add your leads or your potential clients into the HoneyBook system. Awesome. Okay, cool. This is resonating with folks. Donna says, this is good. Okay, great. So these forms, these lead forms, y'all, they can be shared anywhere and they are incredibly customizable. So their only downfall at the moment is that they can't be natively embedded onto your website, but it is coming so soon. So please just be patient with us. So that's why at the moment, I want you to really focus your energy on these lead forms. If you're someone who's built out a contact form instead, that is totally fine. I want to encourage you to explore lead forms as well and potentially even replace that contact form. Okay. So what can these forms do? Let's take a look here. So in order to get to your lead forms in HoneyBook, you're going to pop up to tools and you're going to click lead forms here, and it's going to land you on this gorgeous page where all of your lead forms live. You can have as many lead forms as you want, depending on the different places you get leads from, maybe the different services you're selling. So for example, maybe if you have, do I even have one here? I've got a digital product. So maybe this is my online course that I sell, and that's a very different lead form and interaction than someone who is hiring me for a service, right? Because if I'm selling a digital product, it's kind of a one and done quick transaction where I can just have them pay and I send them to the resource versus when I'm doing services with someone or someone is hiring me for a service, I really just want to collect kind of that basic information and get them into the system. And we'll go into automations in a second here, but you can start to automate that more personalized workflow with them rather than just sending them to the resource they're paying for, right? So what can these lead forms actually do? It's looking pretty similar, right? It's looking pretty similar for folks here. This is very similar to the Smart Files Builder that we just were inside of, right? We've got all these same elements. Actually, the only one that's missing here is contracts, and that's just for legal implications. The lead forms are not going to include a contractual element. That's going to be only in the Smart Files level. So the reason for this, or kind of this is a good place to pause and define, okay, if it looks so similar, then what's the difference? So smart files that we were just going through, those can only be sent inside of HoneyBook, inside of a project. So that's to say, folks who have already inquired with you, you already have their information from a legal perspective. That's where you can start to work with them and send those smart files out to them. You're already kind of in a working relationship. Lead forms are like out in the world. They're out in the wild. They can be shared anywhere. They can be a link in bio on your Instagram. They can be on your website. So they're not able to be embedded at the moment, but you can do a workaround where you have an inquire here or a contact us button. So if that's something that's interesting to you guys, I recommend getting in touch with your website host, so Squarespace or wherever you're building your website. Hop into their support chat and say, hey, I want help building a redirect button onto my website, or go into their help center and search for that. And the redirect button can push them out to that lead form. So that's kind of the workaround at the moment for getting that onto your website. Okay, so anyway, the difference between smart files and lead forms, smart files are shared inside of a project in HoneyBook only. Lead forms are externally facing, out in the wild, out in the world. And that's when they fill that out, that adds them to the HoneyBook system, adds them as a project so that then you can start to work with them going forward. Okay, it's your contact form, it's your lead form, it's the way you get them into the system, and they can be shared anywhere. Smart files only shared in a project. Hopefully that's resonating with you guys. Okay. And these can do a lot of different things, right? They can sell your online course. They can allow your clients to select the packages that you want them to and even move forward with payment. They can schedule their discovery call, or in my example here, probably the most common use case, they're just doing a basic inquiry. They're adding their email, they're adding their name, they're adding their phone number. They're saying what services they're interested in, maybe requesting their desired date, telling you how they heard about you, and then expanding a little bit on why they're reaching out and what they need help with, okay? So now that we know, and again, how you share this, you click share up here and then you copy this link. You can share it anywhere like we were talking about, okay? So now that we know how to get your client information into HoneyBook, because you share this out in the wild, people start filling it out, they're added into the HoneyBook system, we need to review where that information is actually going. So once they submit that form, all the information they filled out will be added to HoneyBook and saved in a new project for you. And all these projects are organized into what we call the HoneyBook pipeline. So I want to show you guys where that lives and what that looks like. So under your projects tab, this is your HoneyBook pipeline, and this pipeline shows you all the different jobs you're working on and breaks them down by stage so that you can see who's who in what part of the process with you. So are they an inquiry who hasn't heard from you yet? Are they someone who's received a first email but haven't necessarily responded? So they inquired, you responded, but they haven't gotten back. Maybe they're ghosting you. We're still trying to figure it out. Have you sent a booking file? Have they signed that contract? Have they submitted payment? So it's showing you all those different people broken down by stage. So it's a really quick way, bird's eye view, to kind of group those clients depending on your process. This is where I'm talking about getting visibility, you guys, because if I see that I have 10 people in the inquiry stage who haven't even heard from me yet, light bulb moment, I should probably set up automations to reply to those people because I'm kind of falling behind here. This is a bottleneck. Another bottleneck I'm noticing, 12 proposals sent and people haven't signed or moved forward with booking. Maybe I need to add a call. Maybe I need to add a personalized moment to connect with my clients and make sure I can help them get across that line. Or maybe I need to set up an in-person meeting where I help them submit payment right then and there, right? So this gives us that visibility to ask ourselves those questions. Where are people getting stuck and why are they getting stuck and how can I fix that? Okay, the pipeline is doing that for us. And you can customize these stages. You can add additional stages if you want to. This meeting stage is actually a customized stage I've added. And you can add automations here. The automations say to HoneyBook, hey, when someone comes in, so this one's already set up, they're going to be an inquiry. And when I send that first email, so this stage, I know some people were saying the screen's a little small, so I'm going to tell you what I just highlighted. It says first email sent. This is impacted by when I send that first email, I want HoneyBook to know to move it to that follow-up stage for me. I can choose whatever stage I want. Okay. So you can build in these automations to say to HoneyBook, when I do this, you move it to this stage in the pipeline. Or when my client does X, they sign the contract, they submit a payment, for example, move it to this stage. Okay. So you can control them here, but you can also control them in the automations tool itself. And I will be getting to that shortly here. Okay. So one common question that folks have when I'm showing them the pipeline and automations in HoneyBook. So while the pipeline can connect to automations to streamline your workflows, they are functionally very different. People are always a little confused around this. So I want to take a moment to kind of define it for us. Okay. So, they're functionally very different. The simplest way to put this is the pipeline is for high level tracking of the general steps in your client flow across all of your projects. Okay, so I've got the keywords kind of highlighted here. They're high-level tracking of the general steps over all projects. Automations are personalized actions for very specific steps in your client flow within individual projects. So they're like a layer deeper than this. So I know we've covered a ton of information, you guys. Give me a thumbs up if you're still with me. Are we still alive? Are we still here? Okay, I know we've covered a lot. We've gone through smart files and understanding how to build them to streamline your process, how templates generally are saving you time. We've gone through centralizing your work using lead forms automatically to bring those leads into the HoneyBook system. We've talked about how the pipeline organizes you and gives you visibility into those groupings of clients so you can optimize your work and your process. I'm seeing all the emojis come through. Thank you, you guys. I see you. Wonderful. Let's keep going. Keep going. Okay, great. So we've talked through all of this. So this is going to bring us to our next point around standardizing your process and automating. This is like our drum roll moment. We've been waiting all class to get here. Get on with it, girl, right? So this is the real CRM powerhouse, superpower of the HoneyBook system. Because the truth is, you guys, no matter, this is like a tough love moment for you all, okay? No matter how powerful a system is, we've just showed you how powerful it is. No matter how powerful a system is, it is only ever going to be as bulletproof as the content and the processes that are built into it. Okay. And that is where you guys come in. That is where you have to take ownership of your process. And switching systems and getting set up in a tool like this will really help you streamline and level up your client relationships. This is the perfect opportunity to assess your process for inefficiencies and remove any blockers or bottlenecks. That is what we are teaching about today to ensure that you're giving your clients the best possible experience with you. Okay. So this is where mapping out your process, or again, simply using the HoneyBook pipeline for visibility into those bottlenecks, can be a huge help. Because once you get that visibility, you can start to ask yourself where you can improve, how you can optimize, where you can be saving time and giving your clients a better experience. So Masha, actually on our team, who's over there in the Q&A tab with you guys, she's actually been doing some amazing research with our members. And I want to share and highlight a story that she had when she was chatting with one of our members recently, because a member was expressing that they were worried that their automations would make their business feel impersonal. Hop in the chat and let me know if that resonates with you, because this is such a common theme that I hear when I'm talking to our members, that Masha hears when she's doing interviews. Are you concerned that automations are going to make your business feel impersonal? Because that is what this member was expressing. Leanne says, yep, 100%, right? This is a big concern. So what this member was doing, I'm going to tell you guys how they felt this way and why they changed their mind, okay? So they were actually delaying steps in their automations intentionally in order to have it feel like it wasn't an automation. They were, when their clients booked and they were ready to move forward with the project, instead of sending the project kickoff kind of next steps and documentation, instead of sending that right away, they were delaying it several days in order to make it look like, oh, I put this together for you, okay? And they quickly realized that their clients were actually reaching out and saying like, hey, what are next steps? Like, are we, I paid, hello, kind of a thing. They quickly realized that their clients were actually very eager to kick things off and get informed of the next steps after they were submitting payment. They realized that their clients really actually respected that their needs were anticipated and accounted for. Okay, this is huge, you guys. This is this is such a great learning, right? So thank you, Masha, for the research. Bianca says, shout out to Masha. Yes. So this is wonderful, you guys. Hopefully this is clarifying some things for you too. So some questions to ask yourself as you're building out smart files, as you're building out automations, as you're eliminating these gaps, or even where you're kind of deciding where that line is in the sand for reducing space or building space, right? To have those intentional touch points. I see Leanne is working with C-level clients, right? So it shouldn't feel too transactional, right? So everyone's line is going to be in a different place. So where are you drawing that line between those transactional things that you can outsource to automations versus where you want to be hands-on? So the questions I want y'all to ask yourselves to decide where that line should be is, where are things slipping through the cracks, right? Where are clients getting lost? And the visibility your pipeline gives you is going to really, really help out there. Where are clients falling off? Where are things slipping through the cracks? Where are you having to apologize in an email? Oh, such a terrible feeling, right? Where can you bring in your tools as a partner to make sure that doesn't happen? Okay, where are you currently involved, but you don't need to be, right? So where are you building out those gaps where you should really actually be eliminating them? Where are we building too much space in our process where we should actually be capitalizing on the momentum that we have with our clients? Okay. Another one here is, how effortless is your booking process? You guys, we are in the Amazon era, whether we like it or not. People want Amazon Prime services. How are you making sure that that moment when they're ready to pay, we're right there saying, perfect, swipe here, right? How effortless is this process for your clients? This is huge, you guys, making sure that that moment when you send that invoice is not the dropping off point. How do you make sure that's super seamless and easy for them? And then the final one here is, how much of your process includes waiting? Are you waiting for the client to do something? Are they waiting for you to do something? How can you cut down on that time? Okay, the invoice contract example that I've been doing all class is a really good one to consider here, right? Don't wait for the client to submit an invoice if that's going to trigger the contract. That should be one step. Okay, so these are all indicators that your process can be more efficient, and you can optimize it and ultimately give your client a better experience with you. Okay. And by the way, I think it's helpful here to remind ourselves that Rome wasn't built in a day. These questions might be things that we address over time for our business. And I highly recommend, as a best business practice, once a quarter, setting a full day to block off your calendar and assess your process. Ask yourself these questions. Map out your process. Where are things not working? Look at your HoneyBook pipeline. Where are people getting stuck? Where are they dropping off, right? This is a really good practice to have. I know we do this in the HoneyBook world. We assess things all the time. What's working? What's not? How do you measure success? I know sometimes as creative business owners, this is not our first thought to do this, but it is so good and healthy to assess the health of our business every once in a while. So build in that time, okay? Because once you've answered those questions again for yourself, it's time to put them into action. And that is where HoneyBook automations come into play. I know so many of you have been waiting for me to get to this point. So I want to quickly share my 5 golden rules to building automations in HoneyBook with you all. Are we so excited? Okay, my 5 golden rules. The first one y'all are going to start out with is setting up your project types. Okay, this is not a super obvious first place to start, which is why I like to recommend starting here. So in order to get to your company settings, again, you go to your profile picture and you click company settings. You're going to come down here to preferences. Okay, and inside preferences, you'll see project types here, and you can edit this list. Project types are meant to reflect your service offerings, your groupings of clients. I think it'll be more helpful if I just give an example here. So I'm going to work with my florist again, just because I've been doing that example all class. So for a florist, there are many different reasons that people hire a florist, right? So maybe it's a bridal client, maybe it's a Mother's Day flower box that I want to send out. There are a lot of different categories of people who reach out to florists, right? Different parties and occasions. Wonderful, Courtney. I know I'm just like, it's top of mind, so I'm working with it, right? So those would be my project types. I would have bridal florals, I would have Mother's Day flower box, and I would have other party or occasion. So I'm just going to have 3 maybe as a florist. Now, another example maybe I can give here, my husband's a professional dog walker, okay? So he actually organizes and groups his clients by neighborhood. So his would be Southeast Portland, Northwest Portland, and out in the burbs. Okay, so those would be his 3 different categories. So we can start to maybe get our gears turning around how we would set these up for a business. Now, the reason we set this up here first is because, as you might remember, in our lead form, we had a question called, what services are you interested in? So again, depending on how you've broken down your project types, this question might be different. For my husband, it would be, what neighborhood are you in? For the florist, it would be, what event are you looking to have your florals for? So you can reword this question depending on what you'd like. But this question we can see over here is linked to project type. So I'm reading it out again because I know some people are saying the screen's a little small. Okay, so this is saying over here in my right-hand menu of the lead form, this is linked to project type. And what this is going to do is it's going to tell HoneyBook that they are a Mother's Day floral box, or what neighborhood they're in, or whatever thing you want to group it by. And what that can do then is it can trigger the automation to send based on what they're inquiring about. So if you're a coaching client and you have different people reach out about different services and you want to quickly get them the resources they need, we know the questions people ask when they're reaching out, right? What is the price? What's the availability? We know some of those questions. We can anticipate that using automations. I'll actually give you guys a take-home example that you can screenshot on the next slide in just a moment for kind of a typical inquiry workflow as well. So stay tuned for that. But this question allows HoneyBook to know what resources to send those people based on the type of client they are. Okay, you don't have to do it that way, but it is one of the ways you can get very niche about getting certain resources out to certain people. Okay, so set up those project types. And then the second step, so I'll go back to my slides so we can see it. Set up those project types and then connect it to the lead form. I just showed you guys that piece, okay? The next one here is building out those templates. This is gonna be a good chunk of time. You're gonna be setting up both the emails and the files. So the files that are gonna go out to those clients, as well as the emails that they're gonna come attached to. Or if you're just using the automation to send an email, you'll want to make sure that those are built out ahead of time, okay? We discussed how to do this one earlier. The next step here is actually getting into building the automation. So you'll go in and you'll build the automation. I'll show you guys how to do this in just a minute. And then you connect the automation to a project. And one of the ways you can connect it is through that lead form being submitted through that project type, okay? So when it comes down to building your automation in HoneyBook, there are 3 ingredients that you're going to need to consider. And we'll dive into the product in just a second here, you guys, I promise, to see how this all comes together. So when you're building an automation, you need to decide what actions need to happen. So what do you need it to do? So I want you guys to ask yourself, what do I need this to do? What's the action? Do we want emails and files to go out? Do we want just an email? Do we want just a file? Do I want a task? So it's going to remind you to do something. And one that's actually missing from here is the pipeline stages that I showed you guys earlier. That's another action that can happen. You can say to HoneyBook, I want the pipeline stage to move. So I need to actually update my slide deck to say that. Okay, the other one is the timing. So you need to ask yourself, when do I need this thing, this action to happen? So how many days, weeks, hours before or after your trigger? And the trigger is the dependency. What is this thing? What is this action dependent on? There are a ton of options here. I've just put a couple up on the screen. These are some of our more popular ones. So the automation being activated, that's like the very first trigger. So this could be the lead form being submitted, right? After first payment is made, after the project date. So project date for my events folks, that's really helpful because that's going to be the event date itself. So that one is a really great trigger for my event people. Some other ones you might want to consider are contract being signed, questionnaire being completed, another great one for my planners. Okay, session being completed is another one if you're someone like a coach who relies on scheduling and sessions and you know that that will trigger the next steps in your process. Session being completed is another great dependency or trigger to use here, okay? Feel free to screenshot this slide, you guys, if this is helpful to you. These are kind of the 3 ingredients, right? These are the 3 questions you need to ask yourself. What's the action? What's the timing? And what's the trigger or the dependency? All right. Now, I want to get into a demo. So let's take a look at a real life example here. So I'm going to pop into automations. The way you get here is through tools and automations. And I promised you guys I was going to show you an inquiry example. But before I do that, I want to show you where this is attached to the lead form. So right here, I've highlighted activate via lead form, and I've selected the lead form that I want this automation to be attached to. So anyone who fills out this lead form is automatically going to be put into this flow of steps that I've built out. Okay, so let's take a look at what those steps are. The first step here is sending an email. This is my new inquiry email where I ask them to schedule a discovery call with me. Totally fine. We could also have the scheduler in the lead form to do that. It's totally up to you. I've set it in my first email. The next one here is as soon as that session is done, as soon as they've scheduled that time and they've showed up for the meeting, I want to send them my service guide, my pricing offering, so they can make a selection. They can move forward with booking. We've had that discovery call. I know what service I'm going to recommend. So maybe this one is actually, maybe I want to set it to approve before sending here so I can customize it a little bit based on our conversation. It's up to you guys. This next one is after 4 days after I send that pricing guide, I have an email reaching out to say, hey, are you still interested? Because maybe I haven't heard from them yet. And this one is definitely set to approve before sending because maybe they did already book and I don't want that email to go out. The final or the second to last one here is as soon as first payment is made, I want to send that welcome packet. So kicking off those next steps, as soon as payment is made, it's like, hey, welcome. I'm so excited that you booked. I can't wait to work with you, whatever you want to say. And it's kicking off the project. It's giving them a timeline and setting expectations and maybe giving them a questionnaire to fill out as homework, whatever you need it to be. And then the final one here is waiting 14 days after the automation is activated. So waiting 14 days after they inquired. And if you still haven't heard from them, maybe you just want to have this final task be archive them. They haven't gotten back to you. They haven't booked that call. They haven't showed up, whatever. They're not going to book with you. They're ghosting you, whatever. Keep your pipeline clean. It's just an internal task to put them in the archive stage. Okay, so I know we're at time. I want to show you guys what this looks like. Okay, screenshot this. If you liked that workflow that I just showed you, screenshot this because this shows you how those ingredients break down for those 3 ingredients that I talked through, exactly what we just talked through. So the intro email thanking them 0 days after the lead form is submitted, the pricing guide after the session's complete, 4 days after the previous step, we're following up with them. Okay, so if you liked what I just showed you, screenshot this and then take that as kind of like a template to go build that out in automations later. Alrighty, that's everything, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope you found this helpful. I know we covered a ton. As I mentioned, the recording will be sent out later, so feel free to rewatch if you need it. And we are so glad you guys are part of the HoneyBook family. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. I really appreciate you all. Alrighty. Thank you, guys.